Hello, everybody. We are live at Inspired Live, our fourth Inspired Live episode, and we are delighted to be here today. There was a bit touch and go as if we were going to make it due to a bit of an after party yesterday after the IPG Awards, which Sanji was with me for, but more on that later. We are here and really excited to be talking to you today about how we can build an authentically inclusive culture in our business, in our teams, in publishing. I'm going to introduce the panel in a moment, but I just wanted to sort of outline where we are as an industry with the kind of latest reports and research that we've got available to us. So in the sort of summary that we had from the launch this event, I was saying I'm going to just touch on a couple of reports, one from the Publishers Association, which was last published in 22, and one more recently from the Flip, which was published just literally just recently. So in 22, and there's a new report due to come out shortly on this, but it basically summarised a few things, which was that females continue to dominate the workforce, accounting to 2/3, pretty much 66%, I think it was, of the workforce. And then when we look at the executive and senior leadership roles, that drops down to then 56%. Interestingly, from that stat, it sort of really encouraged one side of our business, Inspired Search, to create a white paper on women in leadership, just sort of really sort of analysing that landscape a little bit more at the senior end, just to see where the drop off is in terms of having such a female dominated industry and then that drop off at the top. So if anybody's interested in that white paper, obviously please do get in touch with the recently promoted Abigail Barclay, who is now the MD of Inspired Search. It also, sorry, back to the report, it said that there was a bit of progress in terms of representation of people from an ethnic minority group, which has increased from 15 to 17%. It is increasing, as is the LGBT plus representation has increased from 13 to 15%. Representation of people with disability or long-term health conditions has increased from 2 to 16%, which is a brilliant result. And the other two other facts that I sort of thought would be quite interesting to look at is around half of the respondents have experienced mental health problems, and socioeconomic background continues to represent major barriers, with 2/3 of the respondents being from professional backgrounds. If we just quickly compare this to the Flip, and then I'm so excited to introduce Sanji and Bummy, we have got that in this report, that the want and need for recruitment and retention of a more diverse workforce is obvious, coming from every single respondent, that want, and for the authentic nature of that as well. Pay and progression continue to be a major reason for people feeling dissatisfied with their career experience. Working conditions remain key to happiness in regards to having the right spaces, communal spaces, collaborative spaces, but the debate continues whether that makes people happy, or being able to work from home, and the sort of lots of complexities around that. And there's still a demand for more regional offices. The other really interesting thing was the high rates of burnout, with 42% of respondents saying that they often or always experience burnout in their role. And this is the other thing I just wanted to highlight, which is that 79% of the respondents feel very comfortable talking to their line managers about physical health, and that drops to 56% when it comes to talking about the mental health. So I just wanted to kind of go through that, but I must introduce my wonderful panelists and get their kind of viewpoint, their ideas, their experiences, and sort of try and come up with some new ideas for you guys watching today, on how we can move forward and continue to build on what progress has been made and where we should really be focusing, I think, from there. So without further ado, Sanji, first of all, Sanji De Silva, who's a publisher at Sweet Cherry. He's obviously very engaged and enthusiastic about publishing and breaking barriers down and just making amazing books for all. Books are for everyone, and that's what they aim to do. And we'll hear lots more about your publishing program at Sweet Cherry. And Bowie at Western started her career in publishing, and then moved over to Ingram, where she's recently been promoted this year to Director of the Ingram Publishing Services UK. Welcome, both of you. Thank you very much for being with us today on Inspired Live.
Thank you, and congratulations on your IPG award.
What, this?
Which you just happen to have. Well deserved.
It goes everywhere with me now.
And it's handy that it comes in a little bag, right?
I know.
You can't take
Brilliant.
it.
Thank you so much. That's funny. It's almost like we'd thought about doing that before. So let me just go on to ask you, Sanji, moving away from that classic. So obviously you have, out of the three of us, you're the most recent to kind of join the wonderful world of publishing. And so it's just really, I would be really interested to hear like how your experience or how you find it being in publishing versus fashion or other industries, and what we might be able to learn when it comes to that.
So I do have to say publishing was a little bit behind. You know, I'm just going to be really honest. You should never ask me a question. I'm just going to be honest. So fashion, we're a little.
No, that's what we want. It's good.
Yeah. So they're a little bit ahead. So when I started in fashion, it was still a big deal to have someone looking like me in fashion, but not for the obvious things that you would think, because by then you were seeing people on catwalks and there was a lot of diverse, and you know there was a huge thing about it, as you know, but it's still in the back office, which is where I was, you know, like head office, all of the back office wasn't quite like that. So that bit was super interesting, and I did experience the glass ceiling, you know, I did experience, you know, not getting jobs that perhaps I thought I deserved, etc.
Yeah.
So it was a very different journey, but I found solutions around it, and you know, I got to do lots of amazing jobs there. However, what I will tell you is the people are different here in publishing. Open arms, completely welcome, genuine, supportive. There's been so many occasions when I've been a little bit lost and I've just been able to pick up the phone to a fellow publisher or a colleague, not even in Sweet Cherry, externally, because that's the other thing. Like, there's not much support when you are a publisher because you're supposed to kind of know what you're doing. But it's really nice to be able to reach out to people in other publishers and be like, what do you do in this situation? And absolutely no ego. They're like, oh my gosh, I remember when my company went through that. So here's what we do. It's so lovely. And in fashion, that was never the case. Genuinely in fashion, you felt like, who's coming for me? Who's coming for me? You were always watching your back. So that is the biggest difference that I've noticed from that industry to this industry, just how supportive, welcoming, uplifting, you know, constantly complimenting, congratulating, really like what you're doing, keep going. It's really, really lovely.
That is wonderful. And I think sometimes if you've always been in publishing, you don't really you don't get that perspective. You don't understand, you know, what an incredible world it is. And although we don't get everything right and we're a bit slow, maybe to get where we need to get to, there are some positives there.
I think the thing is, it's all really well intentioned. Nobody's really thinking about it. They're just like, oh, it's really good to see you. Gosh, you know, like it's when I first got here, common things were you're exactly what we needed in publishing. They said that a lot. I was like, oh, thank you. You bring a lot of color to publishing because of this. They're good at them. And what they did unintentionally was create a monster, because all of these. Because I was like,
that's normally how I describe you. No,
no, but it's true. Like, and I say, like, publishing created me. They said, informed what I was going to do next. They were like, we love the color. So I was like, bring the color. You know, we love that you're the change we want to see in publishing. So now I am the change you want to see in publishing. Like, this is, they created this monster because everything they told me, I believed.
Wow. Mummy.
How do you come back from that? I don't even know. Well, I think to your point, because we've been in it so long, I think you're right. People are in it for so long because it is a lovely industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We don't, you know, I'm not going to say the number. It's over 20. But I've been in so long, my age there. But I've been in so long that you sort of don't see it. So it's really nice to hear that you've come in, you know, with your colour. And literally everyone's, you know, is kind of open arm. And I think you're right. Everyone is very good intention. So yeah.
So really, this should be a conversation then that is almost easy because we've got good intention, so we should be able to build on that. But I mean, how can publishers authentically? But I mean, this is the key question.
It's a key question.
But like, you know, we're looking at how can they build inclusive cultures and not just talk the talk. How can we actually walk the walk and make real change happen?
So it's a good question. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, the good thing is that, you know, it's a very conscious thing now. Like it's like a buzzword almost that everyone's talking about it, and you know, especially a lot of publishers have teams are thinking about it, and we see in the bookseller, you know, stats that are published kind of thing. But then I was thinking back, and I was thinking, I remember being at Penguin 20 years ago, it was over 20 years ago, and I remember going to it wasn't called DE&I, but there was a diversity group talk, and I remember going. So this is like 20 years ago. So this conversation was happening back then, and my boss walked in at the time, and she was like from New Zealand. I'm not going to say her name because she still works in publishing. I'm still friends with her. And she and I said to her, I'm sorry, why are you here? Said like the 22-year-old me. And she said, well, I'm from New Zealand, and you know, publishing is generally in England white middle class women. British women. She was like, I'm not British, I'm other. And I was like, aha. And that really for me was the first time I thought, you're right. But to answer your question, I think those sorts of groups are as important then as they are now, you know. But the fact that we were talking about it 20 years ago, and I remember being at Faber, when I was at Faber, whenever 18 years ago, they were doing they would have internships for you know, DE&I. So again, this conversation isn't a new one. I think publishers have been looking at this for a long time. Have we got better? Yeah. Have we got a long way to go? Absolutely. You know, sometimes I do go to events. I mean, I remember being, you know, London Book Fair 20 years ago and thinking, oh my God, there's like 3 Black people here, and I'm one of those 3. And so I was obviously friends with the other 2 because we became friends, because you know, but now actually that's not the case. And I'm talking about colour specifically for this part, but then I went to another event like a year ago, publishing event. And I thought, oh my God, there are over 200 people here. I'm the only Black person here. And actually, it was an event. There was only 2 other Asian people, of which Sanji was one of them. So I was like, how still, you know, hello.
Was my boss that second person?
I don't remember.
Because that would be funny.
20 years later, and we've been doing all the right things, and we're still not where we need to be. So I think being conscious of it is really, really important. Things I know that, you know, like unconscious bias training, I'm really keen on stuff like that. I'm really into it. I think Ingram as a company, we roll that out to our associates, and I think that being self-aware of things like that is really important. I do think, you know, for me, I've worked at companies or publishing houses where I've really loved working there. I've loved who I've worked with, and I've realised it's because they're inclusive companies. And I think having a culture that has to come from the top is really important. So I would say that's where I think it starts, because that sets the tone for the rest of your senior leaders and the rest of your team. I think having that understanding and that belief in inclusion and diversity at the very top is really, really important.
I couldn't agree more. We do inclusivity and unconscious bias training every year, and it's because it's just good to top up as well. Like, you can't, it's not just something you should do once, I think. Just to constantly have it at the top of the agenda, constant reminder, and have a safe space to make sure, and being able to call people out if it's, you know, in a helpful way, however it works. I think the word team.
Safe space, I think, also really key. Like having, like, knowing that you know, if it's not your line manager, so it's interesting the stats you were saying, but being able to have a safe space within your company is very important. And I don't think that's necessarily an automatic thing, actually.
True. Thank you so much. Coming back to you, Sanji, Sweet Cherry are obviously a clear example of how hiring from outside the industry can create a lot of success and diversity of thought to create books for everyone. And I've become more and more aware of this the more I hear you talk on sessions and panels, and obviously hanging out with you guys yesterday. It's just incredible what you're doing. So can you talk us and maybe inspire others to kind of do what you're doing, because it's obviously working.
So I think our whole recruitment model is weird, but you know, we're just going to be owning up to it and tell you that. It's very difficult because you've clearly got an out-of-the-box thinker. Like, you're literally looking at somebody who does not look the norm, and I have to fit in a real world where you have to put a job description out, you have to receive CVs and all of this like weird conformist stuff that I'm not really used to doing.
I'm saying nothing.
I know, because it's your job. Like, I want you to understand as a recruiter how you can help us. If you want to help the industry, this is how you do it. And I completely confess and fess up to it to the whole of publishing. When they ask me what I do, I go, this is how I do it. My job is to almost like, it's like bait. I put all of this job description, all this nonsense out just so I can catch the human. Because really, the job doesn't start until I meet you. I meet you first. Then when you come in, I tell them all the time, I'm super honest. I said, look, that was just the game I was playing. I lied to you. I just wanted to meet you. I wanted to meet you. Who are you? Let's talk about you. So, like, why do you want to get into publishing? Tell me all about it. You know, what do you hope to achieve? What, you know, and it's so odd and peculiar for everybody. So sometimes, because I'm the publisher, they may have already gone through the other interviews and I'm kind of like the final stage. And everybody in the company knows that, because like in sales, they're looking out for somebody with sales experience, right? Whatever it is, every department has their thing. But when they come to me, it's a nightmare.
Oh gosh.
It's a nightmare. It's literally a nightmare. These poor human beings. I want you to love every single Sweet Cherry you ever meet, because this is not.
They've been through a lot.
So when they come to me, I go, oh, you know what you need to do? You need to do this. Your life should be about this. And it's that whole, and they go, okay, brilliant. Now come here and do that. When you come here, one of the hardest things is the first 3 months, because you're sat here and you're going, sorry, what is this? I'm allowed to do anything I want. And these people are just going to be grateful. They're just going to be so grateful for any contribution. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in my department. That could be in another department, or I might just, you know, they might have an idea and be like, why don't we do a book about this? And then we'll explore that, and they can lead that book. It's a very strange place, but that's because what we're saying is, if we want to hire diverse people and different people, we've got to go look at it differently. Guess what? When I get a manuscript, I'm not going to get it perfectly formed by an author, right? It's just not something that's going to happen, especially if that author is from a kind of community like mine, who's never been taught that that was an option for them, but they have a story to tell. So what we do is go, really badly formed story, but great story. Love the story. We can fix our side of things, but we love you as a human being and the story you have to tell. And if they have to write the story, you know, like, we have audiobooks, so why can't you just audio the story because you're not confident enough to write, or you've got dyslexia or whatever the thing is. There are so many different ways of consuming stories, and there are loads of cultures where stories are shared non-verbally, or that verbally, not like necessarily always written. So we need to check if the tangible things that publishing can do is this: think differently, do differently, think about, what are the skills that can cross over to this? Like, I'm lucky to be recruited by a boss who just thought, there's something about you.
Can't put my finger on it.
Do you know what I mean? And just trusted that instinct, admittedly for 6 months, let's face it. At the beginning, you're going to get this for 6 months. And then what you do with that opportunity is entirely up to me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? After that 6 months, it's me. And I want to give that same opportunity. And this is why you were saying about it needs to come from the top. Yeah. I now have a responsibility to give that same opportunity to everybody. And you've met some of the people who work here. So I'm literally walking the walk as well as talking the talk.
Indeed. Bravo. And it just feels so like freeing as well, and giving people the space to be creative and entrepreneurial and innovative, and it works. So bravo to you. A real inspiration. Mummy, what other success stories have you seen similar to when I came across that kind of speech? I was like, well, we've got to get you on here. But like, because you've worked in, you said just then, you worked in publishing to start with, and Penguin, and then Faber, and
but I think I did like a boring thing. Now I've heard Sanji, because I just mine was really boring, because I just did a very traditional, I was an assistant and then I was a sales manager, and I just worked my way up, but then what I would
quite
say
linear.
It was very linear. But then on the other side, I think did I get lucky? I think I don't believe in luck, but I went onto Penguin's website and I saw it, because I saw a jobs thing and I applied for it, and then I got the job. There was no Instagram, blah, 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 none of that kind of stuff. It was very, and then after that, it was, and that's the thing about publishing that hasn't changed. It's very who you know. It's still who you know to get your foot in. So as I kind of moved over, it was very, just like contacts, or you hear a job, and I think that's one of my big things that I'm quite passionate about is, how does the young get in? It's so tough, and the salaries haven't really increased that much either in like 20 years. But what I love, and what I was going to talk about, was I like looking at how the publishing has changed is really, I think, really important. There is so much more content, and for me, success story is like, we have some client publishers who are publishing such really interesting things. Again, not always where it needs to be, but we have like one of our publishers, Harvard Business Review. They're a Business Review press, but they do a couple of really they have like author-led books, and I'm going to entwine this into like what we do at Ingram. One of their books was called The Anxious Achiever, and it was about how if you're you suffer from like anxiety, how you can turn that into a superpower for leaders, managers, and you can roll it down. And so I was part of the DE&I team at Ingram for 4 years, and so we turned it into a book club. So we do that. So we did this for all our associates. Anyone could join, but again, you need like line manager buy-in, because obviously people were taking 45 minutes out of their day to like listen to this thing. And so we did it really well. It was like, you had a private chat, so people were, I could see it, people were talking to the author. So it was very interactive, and it was amazing. And she was really honestly talking about how you cope with anxiety and mental health in a workplace, and how you use it to your advantage. And we had some very personal questions from associates that she answered. So that kind of thing, just again, it's like really we've taken our author from one of our publishers. We know that mental health people don't feel comfortable necessarily talking to their line manager in some cases, and all those little things I think is really important to looking at, like what using what our publishers publish to like so I think that's
that's so brilliant, because literally we're surrounded by books that can help us in this situation. And that just like, okay, key takeaway is form a book club. Yes, read your books. together.
Read your books together. It's really, and
don't just publish them, read them.
Well, it's true, read them. And how can you roll it out, and because I'm in sales, I've been selling this book like in the UK, so I knew what the book was about, so I was able to roll it out and it benefits the author, because people then like, my God, this book's amazing, and buy it. And then we had another one which I thought was really interesting called oh my God, title's gone, I know the author. She writes about managing difficult conversations in the workplace, and that's something that is really key, because we all have difficult conversations, whether it's internally, and so we did again like a book club with her where she talked about how to have those conversations. So again, it's just there are not just thinking about the kinds of books that we're publishing that people need to read. I think that's really, and then obviously we have publishers who are actively thinking about what they publish. So Greystone Kids are looking at diverse books for kids, and I have a 4-year-old, and I'm just going to say, I was looking for a book, my husband's white British. There was still I couldn't find any British books about a child who has one black parent and one white parent. They're all American. I mean, that's a huge thing, and I couldn't believe that I've been working publishing for this long and I couldn't find a book that I could read to a 4-year-old. And so we've still got a long way to go, but we are in the content business. That's what our job is, and that's what I think we, as a publishing industry, we still really need to think about, like, what are we publishing, who are we publishing it for, how can we get our books to readers who don't necessarily read, like in it could be an audio, it could be a Tony, like how we're getting our books out there.
Oh wow, thank you. There was a fantastic panel at the Booksellers Children's Conference as well, and there's an author on the panel, and she is a mother, and her daughter was after something unusual, and there was just nothing around for her, and it's a little while ago now, so I'm a bit sketchy on the story, so this is really articulate of me. But anyway, the point was that because she was an author, she could then go and write this book with this particular genre that was suitable for that age group, kind of thing. And it's like, that's so important, with so much, all the reports out there of kids not engaging with books anymore, because they're much rather be on the screen or things like that. If we can offer more in terms of the breadth of publishing that appeals to everyone, then they're more, because if you have to read books that you're not interested in, it's really a hard slog, isn't it? So and
a lot of people aren't interested in books. Some people love the they're audiobook people or whatever, and so we have to be conscious
I love audio,
and I think bookshops can be intimidating as well, so it's like, how do we get our content out there?
Brilliant. So how can we be more Sanji?
We've decided that's the phrase, isn't it?
This was the question was wrong, so we've changed it.
I love that. And the funny thing is, this has been a thing in my friendship circle for about 20 years.
It's not new.
It's not new. I'm so glad publishing is finally catching up to my friends. The exact
How
words,
can I be more Sanji
in this situation? What would Sanji do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Who's that question posed?
That was a question.
So how can we encourage people to bring their authentic selves to work and make it safe to do that? So then I just changed the question to how can we be more Sanji? So do you have anything else to kind of add onto that at all?
Who, me?
Yes. You
know what? It's about walking the walk and talking the talk. And I have to say, sometimes I fail at it. So I think it's good to talk about moments where I failed, so you can go, oh my God, Sanji, even Sanji makes a mistake. So I look like this. And I had to send an email out of saying, oh, please, can you remember that you work at Sweet Cherry? I've got Morgan sat next to me who's like, what's he gonna say?
Oh no. We just see this.
Yeah, if you see the little hook pulling me off. No, but genuinely what happened was I had to send this company communication to say, hi, can you just please remember we're a professional company, so when we have guests, we may want to dress professionally and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't really a me thing. There was a meeting about it with the seniors. They said, you know, it kind of can't be seen in a certain way or whatever it was. And I just said, oh, yeah, blah, blah. Didn't think about it, sent it. And this is why your line from it has to come from the top is so important. And you don't understand how important that is. I just did it because I wasn't thinking, and I just did it, which was fine. But my boss called me out on it.
Okay.
What was that? He said. What was that? I went, oh, I'm sorry. Is everything all right? And he's like, that wasn't you. You literally dressed like you when you're telling other people how to dress. Like, what is that? Like, explain yourself. And I was like, yes, this is the moment to call Sanj out, because really what I'm saying is, if you don't conform, it's not going to be good for us, our business. And that's where we're literally the opposite of that. We're literally authentically the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was that point when I should have questioned. I should have said, no, that I'm not sending that email. No, that's not a direct representation of who Sweet Cherry are. That's not, you know, who we are. Or, you know, had a broader conversation about it. But that's why I do need like a boss to tell me, don't forget who we are. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget why we hired you. Don't forget what we're here. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the way you dress. Because if it was, you wouldn't have your job, mate. You just wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? If I needed you to turn out in a suit, you're not the guy, right? And it's like, yeah, oh my God, like, what was I even thinking? And it's about saying to the whole industry, look, if we want to see that change, we've got to accept differences. We've got to go, you have something, a perspective that you can add value to in this business. Let's explore together and find out what that is. Some people take longer, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we had two new starters within about the third week. The first start was like, this is the job I want to do. I've loved working in your company, walking around the different departments, because that's how they do when they're starting. And then they decide which department they want to stay. Yeah. They knew straight away. Brilliant. That manager said, she's mine, blah, blah, blah. But then same startup, there was a second person who said, I'm not ready to make that decision yet. I want more time. And she took 5 weeks. And then she came and said, I want to be in this department, which obviously meant one manager was disappointed, but the other manager was happy. Fine about this, because the human being and the correct department have been matched. And now we know they're going to have this amazing, flourishing career. One of the things I'm really conscious about is I'm bringing this new to publishing human beings into the company. I don't want them stuck. You know, I've got senior people who worked for 20, 30 years who would say to things like, oh, I started in editorial, I'm now in production, or whatever it is. And I want to give that gift to others. Yeah. Don't feel like you have to make this lifelong commitment now. Go enjoy, go explore, go find out what publishing is about and see which department takes your fancy. Then decide. Of course, sometimes we have people who do 2 days in one department and 3 days in another department, which as a manager, they do not like. They're just like, what is this about? But it's better for the human being. And if it's good for the human being, it's good for the business. Yeah. Happy people. Coming in, working super hard in 2 departments and just enjoying every minute. Yeah. Brilliant.
And I think linked to that as well is thinking about, you know, if you go into a job in one role, one department, that's not to say in 2 years you're not going to move somewhere else. And part of that inclusion in a company is thinking, well, you want to retain good staff, and if you see an opportunity elsewhere, like moving them internally. And that's, you know, again, something Ingram do really well is thinking about where else can we go. And I think that's really important with people feeling part of something, you know, in terms of the company. So
we had a panel at London Book Fair, and one of the panelists was talking about liquid career kind of thing, like water and flowing, and it was a similar kind of idea to the Squiggly Career, which was a book that they published a while ago. And I think, again, from the leadership down, we've got to be more open to these ideas, and we need to remove the barriers to people having careers like this, because I think, you know, like our, you know, history, like in linear terms, in terms of linear careers, are much easier. for a lot of people to hire from, aren't they? Because it just all makes sense in the brain and everything's in order and brilliant. But actually, you're going to get more ideas, more a breadth of broader experience, and kind of think outside the box more often, because if you've had that more squiggly kind of liquid.
I think that I would like to give much more practical
in some ways, but
like it's really important that anyone watching this gets practical things. So things that I look at the most is the cover letter, and you'll be happy to hear this as a recruiter, because that's where I see the passion. So if it's a cover letter that reads very much like, I'm sure they've sent this cover letter to everybody. I'm not here for it. I'm in a creative industry. I want to see a creative cover letter. So examples like one of our employees wrote, never have I been more excited to apply for a job at Sweet Cherry or whatever. Or, I've tried 5 times and whatever it is, to make it really personal and to show how important it is for them.
Yeah,
that sort of gets me in. Then the other thing is, I'm a terrible human being. I don't read this part of the CV, this bit.
Yeah, just read the top.
I read this part of the CV. The little square in the corner or the bit at the side that says their hobbies and interests. I'm just giving you really practical things I do. Like, it's really important, you get it. Yeah. And I'm like, let me see who you really are.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't got time to go through someone's socials. I know the previous publisher used to do that. I think it's a real invasion of privacy, and I don't really do that. I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable. But that bit tells me quite a lot, and I'll be like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's important to have the human in it.
Yeah. Then after, so that's the order I read. Cover letter, the little bit about, themselves, like what their hobbies are, the bit sort of in small print, if you like. Then I go, right, now I've got a little bit of what you are. Let me read your experience.
What you've done. Yeah.
And, so that's my order.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to follow it.
I agree with the covering letter. I always, if it's generic, that's my first thing I think. No, and it's just if you've got like 50 CVs, you're just looking. You have to be so quick. I don't look at the bot. I actually do look through. But then again, I look for the different, because you can see so many of the same. And I think, it's funny, we've talked about this. We've been talking for 37 minutes and we haven't talked about employment, because that is, how do you recruit diverse people? And how you recruit. That's like the key thing which we haven't mentioned until you mentioned the CV. But I think it's almost because it's obvious. Like that's. I say it's obvious, but I don't know if people are doing.
But that's why I wanted to talk about it. I want anyone giving up that hour or whatever it is to watch us. I want them to have some takeaways. Like, what are the tangibles? For me, it's skills that cross over. Be open-minded to those. Is this person just so passionate about getting into publishing? What can they bring that's fresh and new and that can offer? And that's basically everybody behind in the office here. They're all people who are fresh into publishing, who want to be in publishing, but they just couldn't find a way in. And, maybe they've had 2, 3, 4 years of other experience, which unfortunately means they can't now get into publishing because they've kind of set their stall up somewhere else. We want to think differently. Or they're fresh into publishing straight from uni, which is its own thing, which we can have a different debate about later. But it's about giving these practical steps to other people who might be watching, who want to do this, to be a SAD. Now that you've created it, I'll tell you what I do. So anybody who wanting to do it, I'm not precious about it. I want to see a change in publishing. I want to see more, diverse workforce, and this is, how we do it.
But actually, I think, bringing someone in from another industry, I did that recently. So it's a very similar kind of trajectory as me, but it's completely different. Well, not completely different, but it wasn't books. And so I thought the person's a salesperson. They have all the skills that is needed. So why not? And obviously she's brilliant. But my point, thinking about, you want to bring different people to the party. The basic skill set's a basic skill set, but things can be learned. That's what I always think. Things can be learned. There's training, there's mentoring, and I think mentoring is a really big part, which I think is really important in a workforce as well. But I think constantly thinking about that is I mean, for me, I just think that should be like an automatic now. You know, we're talking about DEI all the time. So think about how you recruit. Think about who you
Yeah.
you know, don't have the same people over and over.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And hence, like asking as well, because Sweet Cherry have, you know, shown exactly that, hiring people from outside the industry, hiring Emma, your latest, well,
Yes.
not latest hire, but one of them who's been working
Yes.
very hard over the last
Yeah.
year or
I mean,
so
that is
on your
again
new
unusual.
book range.
Yeah. So our thing is this: if we want sales, is a really good place to start with introducing you know, because if I've just got a young adult reader who is a young adult fan and who wants to sell young adult books, that's great for my young adult list. But what about the early years reader? You know, what about all of that? That's the way I think. I think different people are going to have a passion naturally for different things. So I'd rather have a portfolio of loads of different people into loads of different things. That way I have more chance of success. That's the way to think about it. Do I just want to publish one type of book, or do I want to publish lots of different types of books, lots of different stories? And the only way you're going to get that is by engaging with different types of people. So Emma is a fabulous example. You know, here I was thinking I'm being very diverse and very inclusive and all of that. And Emma knocked on our door here in Leicester and told us, not so much. And I was like, sorry, what? How very dare you? You know who you're talking to? And it was about saying, yeah, but you've missed out a whole community of special education needs kids that she worked with at the time. And I was like, okay, you know, I make books. I'm pretty sure it's fine. Yeah, but you're not making it accessible. What does accessibility look like? And the conversation was, I understood that Emma took her books, she bought our books from the shops, and then she remade them. After she finished teaching her class, she would go home, remake these books, and then present them to her class the next day. And I was like, wait, so after you finish work, you're not having a glass of red wine and chilling in front of Netflix. You're actually doing my job, really, again. And she's like, yeah, that's what I do. I was like, well, that definitely can't happen. I'm not doing my job. And obviously now, you know, she's employed by us. Yeah. So it's that thing of going, you have nothing to do with publishing, but you have something that you're saying we're doing wrong, then come and show me how to do it right. Come and show me what we need to do. And she's showing us to the tune of, you know, every cherry, and we know how that's turning out. Like, it's insane.
But I think as well, that's it, isn't it? You want a group of, you know, talking about diversity, you want people to bring their ideas, you know, to be able to feel they can bring their ideas to whoever it may be, and that's how you. Yeah, I mean that's it, isn't it?
Ideas thing is another thing. So one of the other things I get from other publishers, because I'm really fortunate to be able to speak to other companies, they say we don't have that. There's an ideas process. That you know, there's a lot of opportunities for no's. Whereas here, genuinely, this week, the head of sales said, oh, by the way, there are 3 juniors who wants to present a book. Do you have time? And I'm like, yeah, bring them in. So they literally came here, sat there. The work they had put in was outstanding. The presentation was outstanding. 2 editorial people, 1 design, I'd say maximum a year, maybe just a little over a year. They've all been in the company. That presentation was an immediate yes. Go make that happen. And, you know, it's that publishing. So, you know, there's no other company that really a junior can basically dictate and determine a list. And that's what makes us different. You know, we're always receptive.
So if we were in a company together, obviously we'd be achieving lots.
100%. Let's just do this.
Sorry, I'm going to get in lots of trouble now. But I didn't mean that.
I don't think it's that much of a crazy idea.
I think it is.
Well, maybe take this one offline.
Maybe we should be, and no, this is not going to work anywhere other than publishing, because of what I said at the beginning. We are so collaborative. I think we should all agree to put our egos aside, which we've done, and we've walked the walk and talked the talk. So what that looks like is I will recruit brand new to publishing people who are diverse or may not be diverse in various different ways. But one of the things that I put my ego aside is when they get a job at a bigger publisher and they leave me. I do not mind that at all. That's a win. That's a win. Because this human being would not have had that chance if we didn't give them that chance. And every single person that graduates, that moves on from me, is a win for me. And I want everyone in publishing to agree that let's just take those barriers and boundaries down. Let's just go, let's let all of our, you know, lovely humans go through various different, you know, companies and let's not take it personally or it's an affront. They left me.
Absolutely, the only way to be when it comes to that.
Let's share. Let's all share.
Yeah.
Let's work on our.
We're sort of running out of time here. I've got one last question to ask, but I've realised I forgot to encourage all of our viewers to also ask questions. Like, you've come to watch us today. Please do ask us some questions, and you know, because there might be things that you want to know as well.
And part of being inclusive and diverse is to say that sometimes you may not want to ask this in a public forum, but we are very approachable outside as well. So you can just direct message us. I try and respond to every message I receive. But, you know, it's really important because we have that here. Like when you have a big meeting, not everyone's going to be comfortable enough to put their hand up and speak. So we have this thing where you can just Slack message us privately and go, I didn't want to say this, but I actually thought this was a good idea or whatever. And sometimes some of our best ideas come from those who have time to process.
That's brilliant, because I think a lot of managers who are managing you know, people in the team and at Hay in that hybrid model, when they're having meetings, they struggle with encouraging people to be more visible when they're not physically in the office, and having those kind of tools and those kind of ideas implemented is brilliant, because it means they've got a platform to speak without you know, having to speak in the meeting and things like that. But let me just ask one final question, which is what top tips, and it might be that we've already said them already, but just to kind of give those practical tips, takeaways, would you give to individuals or organizations on what they can do to change in 2024? And we'll go one on one. So, Armini, do you want to go first?
You know, I would say as an organisation, if you haven't got some kind of DE&I team, it could be like 2 people, it could be 5 people. I would say do it, because I was on ours for 4 years, and we're global. We've got all these offices. We've got 3 in the UK, and so trying to have like one message for like all of these people was really hard. And so what we did, we had like the core one, but we also had like these kind of mini in location one as well, because it's not one size fits all, and that's the point. And so, and mixing as well, you know, I talked about, you know, it has to come from top down, but also you need a range of levels as well across departments, because different people have different views, and what you think is true may not be true, and so, and they may not be able to feel they can go to you or the line manager. So be able to talk in an open group that's specific to making things better, and you know, increasing diversity and inclusion within a company, I think is really important. Training as well. Those 2 in training are my like, you know, practical my practical hat on. I think, and those
regular training as well.
Regular training,
Sanji?
Crossover skills, which I'm going to keep going on about. Just be open to the way you recruit, how you recruit, and who you recruit. See everybody. You know, you might have a little pot of gold everywhere. You know, give everybody the opportunity. We're really lucky. We're not really in that position where we've got any kind of recruitment strategy. We're genuinely just putting jobs out there, and people are coming to us, and we're basing it on what they want to do with us, and then that's kind of so much easier for us. Or we have this model where we're just not recruiting, but people still insist on writing to us because they want a job, so that's also a thing, and we've hired them based on the fact that what the job that they've pitched they'd like to do for us actually works with what we need. That's also fun. So we've done that. So it's literally thinking outside of the box is my tip. Think of different ways that you can get new people into your company. And there are tons out there who want to get into publishing. Publishing is, like the kids say, top tier. They want to get in.
Oh, that's so nice.
You know, there is lots of opportunities if you want to see them.
I have a last one which doesn't really impact any like here, but I know I've heard you have a lot of companies have what they call internships, and quite often interns do a whole and they you know talk about that kind of socioeconomic differences as well, which is very, very key.
Yes.
You have interns, brilliant, and they don't get a job at the end, and it's like, well, and they could be. So I'm thinking about, like, you know, if you're going to do all these things and you're you know helping them get to that next level, I think is quite important as well. And mentoring, I think mentoring is a huge thing. I love, like, internally or externally, like having I still have a mentor that I've had for years. She doesn't know she's my mentor, but she is. But like having someone who you can sort of give you that by the way, it's you, having that external, you know. And I think within a company it's a really good it's a really, even if it's not formalized thing to do, I think having some kind of
it's
informal
so
mentor is good.
important. And I think, like, having somebody that you can go to and that inspires you, and sort of helps you find your drive and your ambition and the why, and why you're working so hard, and that kind of thing is just really, really important. And I think that's another reason why this conversation is so important, so that we can have more diversity at the top, to show and to be there as inspirational figures for those coming into the workforce. But yeah, recruitment is key in this conversation. It's an opportunity for you to diversify your workforce.
What are you
going
to do, Susie?
What am I going to do?
Come on, tell me what you're going to do.
Well, we're going to do all of this. So we're already doing it all. We're putting on these conversations. We're making top of the agenda.
I think on the top of your, you know, when you submit to one of your clients, put us at the top.
Exactly. But this is the frustration for Inspired. We will submit a diverse shortlist, but we're not in the room when people are interviewing. So this is our way of also saying, look, how successful it can be. When you,
so why don't you send them in for an interview with me first? I will do interview training with them. You can have a mock interview with this guy, so you can boss it in the real one.
I love it. Actually, I think there's an idea there. But yeah, I think the more that we can learn about how to reach a wider pool of people when we're recruiting, like how are we putting people off? I think there's a lot. What you were saying, although it is a nightmare maybe for some, there's something in it that are very complicated. Job titles are a barrier sometimes, because why is an editorial assistant not the same as assistant editor? They've both got assistant in the title. It's confusing to people who don't know, and the jargon that comes through, which makes sense. Building a list. What is a list? You know, that it's like, what is the commissioning editor and things like that. So it's kind of, you know, I think there's some more practical things that we can all do, and then we can influence and maybe find. We are a wordsmith. We're all a sector of wordsmith. We can find words that are more universally appealing, maybe to attract a wider audience. There are lots more things that we can do, but I think the key is that retention. Once you've got somebody in, you need to make sure that you are truly inclusive, you're authentically inclusive, and you guys have given some amazing ideas and insight and really positive way forward, I think, for 2024. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having us. It's my very first, what's this platform called?
LinkedIn Live.
LinkedIn Live. Sorry, I have no idea. I literally have a trouble.
Where am I?
How to do it. I couldn't even download it. Genuinely, somebody had to come in and make this work, and they sit right next to me to make sure.
I think you've behaved very well. Let's do it again.
Definitely, whenever you need. You don't realize I'll be reaching out to you soon after, because both of you are now involved in something a lot bigger coming your way.
Watch this space.
What have you done?
We're going to make an announcement. You don't have a choice, because now we're going to make you walk the walk. Now then you've got to talk the talk.
We're going to talk the talk. And on that note, before we get in any more trouble, I must bring this wonderful session to a close. Thank you so much. I've truly enjoyed myself. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.